Okay, so hello and welcome. Could you please put a plus in the chat box if you can hear me and if you can see the presentation? So it might take a bit of time for everyone to come here. I'm also sending a notification to my subscribers on BK and to my mailing list so that more people could join. Okay. So I also believe there is a delay in around 30 seconds. So I will probably hear myself in 30 seconds and then I can turn it off. Turn off the sound. To my subscriber. Okay, so yes, I can see that I am online. Okay, so those who do not join from the very beginning, you can watch the recording a bit later. Now, today we're going to talk about IELTS Speaking Part 1 questions. So, and the topics that we'll probably discuss. So last Sunday, I think it was, we discussed topics like TV programs, museums, maths, trees, rest, farming. Yes, and so this all. So farming, rest, trees, maths, museums, TV programs. And today we'll talk about singing, getting up early, and so on. So these are real topics that are used in IELTS. So how do we receive these topics? These topics are collected from candidates who take IELTS all over the world. So every year there are around 3 million people who take IELTS, and some of them report the topics that they have. We also know that the topics change once in 4 months. So the topics that we're discussing now, they are in use from January till April, but also since they only appeared in January and not last season, we also know that they will be in use from May till August. So if you're going to take your exam before August 2021, these are the questions that you're likely to receive. So every season, there are about 30 topics, 30 topics in use. What you can do to score higher in your IELTS speaking is to prepare these questions. By preparing, I don't mean memorizing answers. I do not encourage this. So I always tell my students, do not memorize these answers. What you can do is just think about advanced vocabulary for the topic, or vocabulary collocations, maybe some idioms, phrasal verbs, and so on. You can think about specific grammar for specific questions or question types. And for part 2, you can also think of a plot. You can think of a plot, like what your story is going to be like, so that you don't have to think about what you're going to say within this 1 minute of preparation. You can know the topics before the exam, and you can also prepare them before the exam. That's the good thing. So not everybody knows this. Well, more and more people know it. I found it out in 2018, so for 3 years already I've been using it. At that time, very few people knew it, but now more and more people know about this. Okay, without further ado, so could you also please put a plus in the commentary section in the chat box that you can hear and you can see everything? So right here. I believe you can because I can hear my own voice, but I just turned off the sound. Now let's start with the first topic, and the first topic is going to be singing. They ask, do you often sing? Right? And a possible way to answer this question is, well, you either do it often or not often, or it depends. And if you don't do it very often, you can just use this expression. So you can use this expression for every question with how often. Well, once in a blue moon. It's an idiom that means very rarely. In addition, you could also say that, well, you used to sing, let's say, once in a blue moon, or vice versa, very often, but now you do it once in a blue moon. And by doing so, you can just introduce a third conditional. So if you had asked me this question, let's say 5, 10 or so years ago, I would have answered that I did it once in a blue moon. Having said that, now I sing every other day or every spare minute or something like this. Okay. So additionally, you can also use inversion, and instead of saying, if you had asked me, you could say, had you asked me this question, let's say 5 years ago, I would have answered. So if you know third conditional well enough to produce something like this, well then, here's what you can do. Okay, now some topical vocabulary related to singing. You could also mention, well, some words like tune or melody. So in almost any question, you can use those. So this can be, you can also say to have a perfect, to have no ear for music. Or you can say to sing out of tune. It means not correctly out of tune, or to sing out of key. You can also say that if somebody sings badly. Or you could say to have a perfect pitch. So you could also use these expressions. Okay. Now, if they ask you, do you often sing? You can say, well, for example, like every day, or you might want to say that it depends on my mood, something like this. And then you could say, whenever I'm in a special mood for that. Whenever I'm in a special mood for that. If you have any ideas, I mean, any expressions that you want to use, that you can use to answer this question, please write them in the chat box. From time to time, I look at the commentaries, and so I can also reply to your questions or commentaries. So you could say, whenever I'm in a special mood for that, or you could say, when my mood strikes. Something like this. Okay, when do you like to sing? Well, basically, yes. So you could also use these expressions for this question. So when do you like to sing? Probably that will be more appropriate. If you say this, do you like to sing? Well, I do it often or once in a blue moon, and I do it whenever I'm in a special mood, then probably the examiner will skip this question and ask you the next one. Okay, so you can also do, so whenever I need to relax, and when you want to say that you want to relax, you can use expressions like whenever I want to unwind, or whenever I need to recharge my batteries, or whenever I need a system reboot. So these are the expressions that you can use. Recharge my batteries. So, right, then, is it difficult to sing? And is it difficult to sing well? So here, you might want to say that it's easy, and an idiom for saying that something is easy, that's a piece of cake. You can say, well, whereas for some people it's a piece of cake, for me it's, and you can say something for some expressions for difficult, I would recommend it's a daunting task, or it's a formidable challenge. So if you want to say that something is easy, you just say it's a piece of cake. And if you want to say that something is difficult, not only about singing, you can reuse these expressions. So, and then if something is difficult, you can say it is a formidable challenge. Or it is a daunting task. Right? So or you need to do your utmost. So you need to do your utmost. If you want to sing well, you need to do your utmost. It means to do your best, to do your utmost, to hone your singing skills. To hone means to develop, to hone your singing skills. So you'll use two advanced words here: do your utmost and hone. So these are advanced expressions. So yes, or you need to discover the full potential of your voice and take advantage of it. Okay, so if you use a good vocal training program or take singing lessons and practice daily, or if you're extremely gifted, then it's a piece of cake for you. Otherwise, it might be a formidable challenge, especially if you don't have an ear for music. Okay, then the next question is, do you want to be a singer? So there are two main answers here: yes or no. So you could say something like, this is my dream career. Or you could say, singing is a way to, or is a way of expressing myself. I want to be well known in my country and all around the world. Or you could say, I want to touch everyone's heart with my songs. Okay, or you could say, I don't want to because I'm too shy to perform on stage, or I don't have an ear for music, or I'm not gifted, or I don't have a great sense of pitch. Or you could say, it's not my cup of tea. You can say it about everything. It's not my cup of tea. Right. So, and finally, what kind of music do you like to sing? So examiner is not interested in actual information, like about what kind of music you like singing. So just try to select the type of music that that you know in English and that is really advanced. So you could mention something like gospel songs. Sometimes I think the national anthem, or country songs, ballads, dance music, any type of music that you know in English. So you can mention here, let's say, hip hop songs. And then continue speaking about this, depending on what you want to say. So you can say, I'm keen on singing ballads because they are typically slow and have an emotional touch owing to the lyrical content. And I also like, in addition to this, I also like country songs for their meaningful lyrics and soothing tunes, and undeniably for those good stories which they tell. All right, so this is the topic of what kinds of music? This is the topic of music. So the next one, that's getting up early. So for this topic, there is also a special video that I recorded on this topic maybe in January, I think. So let me, I'll copy the link here in the chat box so you can just watch it. And a good expression here for speaking about getting up early would be something like at the crack of dawn. Or you could say at an ungodly hour. Okay, so at the crack of dawn means really, really early. And at an ungodly hour means either very early or very late. So it just depends on the context of what you want to say. Okay. So the first question here is, what is your morning routine? Well, you can say the first thing I do in the morning is, or you could use a cleft sentence here and say, what I do in the morning once I wake up. So what I do once I wake up is, that will be a cleft sentence. Or you could use a perfect participle and you can say, having woken up. And then you will say, well, I do this and that. Okay, maybe here you could also mention some sport exercises that you do. So you can actually use this vocabulary for sport exercises in many free time activities also. So you can say, once I just brush my teeth, have breakfast, and before this you can say that I do pull-ups, push-ups, sit-ups, squats and lunges. So sit-ups, squats, and lunges. So here's how you can use a lot of less common lexical items just in one answer. Pull-ups, push-ups, sit-ups, squats, and lunges. Okay. Then, well, you can also say, I weigh myself. Some people do this, and it's a bit more advanced than saying, I have breakfast, I brush my teeth, and so on. Okay. Then you can also say that I schedule my day. So schedule my day. Okay, well, things like that. Now, is breakfast important? You can either say yes or no. You could mention that it provides immeasurable benefits. So here's a good correct location for you. It provides immeasurable benefits to our health and well-being. Or you could use an inversion here and say, not only does it provide immeasurable benefits to our health and well-being, but it also gives us a lot of energy for the rest of the day. Okay, or you could say it provides the body and brain with fuel after an overnight fast. Okay, so also you could say that it restores the glucose level. Or blood glucose level. I think it will also be, even medically, it will be accurate. So, which is needed for the brain to function. Okay, well, that's what you can say about breakfast. And then, how do you feel when you get up early? You could mention that I feel drowsy and discombobulated, or I feel like a zombie. So something like this. So whenever I might wake up at the crack of dawn, I feel drowsy and discombobulated. So that will be a nice beginning for your answer. All right. Okay, and let's take one more topic. Reading. So if you want to speak about books and reading, you could mention some interesting books. So some interesting books that you might mention are called page turners. So a page turner is a kind of book that makes you read it over and over, makes you read it and want to read it again and again. So you can also call yourself, if you like reading, you can call yourself a voracious reader. Voracious is a person who is reading all the time and cannot stop. And maybe you will want to mention that you're a voracious reader 2 or 3 times in your answer. So once you can say voracious reader, second time you can call yourself an avid reader. And then you can also call yourself a bookworm, or use some kind of collocation like a serial bookworm. Okay, and you can read a book from cover to cover in one sitting. So here's read a book from cover to cover in one sitting. That's what you can also say. Then you could also mention that a book has an intricate plot. Yes, and you can say that something kept you glued to the book. I was glued to the, or you can say I was glued to the sofa when I was reading the book. Something like this. Okay. Now, do you like reading? And you can say, well, yes, I'm a voracious reader, and then life without books would suffocate me, or something like this. And then you can also mention that books, well, why are you interested? Because reading broadens our horizons. So it broadens my horizons, or my scope, you could also say, or my outlook, right? Even though some people, they have aversion to reading. If you want to say that you don't like reading, you can also mention that. I have an aversion to reading, so I don't like it. Okay, then what kind of books do you like to read? You can mention any types that you know. These can be, let's say, autobiographies, autobiographical books. Or you could say detective stories, romance novels, like this. Detective stories, romance novels, or sci-fi novels, science fiction, sci-fi novels. Okay, then what book did you read recently? Just mention one of these books. And so you can say that it was one of the most cited books in 2021. In this book, the author touches upon something. So it touches upon some kind of topic. Touch upon. Here's a good phrasal verb that you can use. And what did you learn from this book? So you could start by saying the most valuable, well, I believe the most valuable insight, the most valuable insight is that, then you say what, depending on what the book was, you can say what the most valuable insight was. So what did you learn from it? So here you can also use perfect participle. Having read the book, and then you say what you learned. I learned that something that you want to say. Okay, so yes, the most valuable insight is that. Or you can also say, this book enabled me to get through a sticking point in my life. Okay. Or I managed to look at all my problems from a different perspective. Or you could use an emphatic construction here and say, it was not until I read this book that I realized and then you can say what you want to say. Now, why do parents make children read books at an early age? So you can say that children are in their formative years. So when their personality is being formed. Okay, it also improves their overall development or improves their brain development. Can influence healthy brain function that will last a lifetime. Okay, so it also sparks the kids' curiosity about people, places, and things, or it promotes creativity. Maybe, why not? Okay. Or you can also say it positively impacts creative problem-solving skills, or helps to instill a love of learning. Okay. Yes, so if you have any commentaries or any other ideas that of expressions that can be used to answer these questions, please write them in the commentary section. Helps to instill love of learning. Now, what was your favorite book as a child? Well, you can mention any kind of a fairy tale, and you could say that, well, whatever book you mentioned, like Harry Potter or Colorbook or whatever, you can say, I used to sit by nightlight, and there is another expression that means to study, to read, or to work till late at night. It's to burn the midnight oil. Okay, you can also mention here. So you can also use these expressions that I mentioned in the beginning. So you can read the book from cover to cover in one sitting. Yes, and it kept me glued to the book until the last page. So I like this book so much, and you could also mention this. It had a very intricate plot, and the book was captivating. Here's another expression that you can use here. Okay, then should reading be a compulsory activity for children at school? Sounds like an essay topic, and actually It can be either an opinion essay or a discussion essay, and I believe it's often the case they ask speaking questions, especially in part 3, and then you can see the same topics of essay. So reading should be a compulsory activity for children at school. To what extent do you agree or disagree? Well, some people believe it should, some others believe it should not. Discuss both views and give your opinion. Yes, so it can also be used as an essay. Now, if you want to paraphrase compulsory, you could say mandatory, or you could say obligatory. Then when you want to say yes, instead of saying yes, you can say absolutely, undeniably, or indisputably, or you could say I'm leaning towards, and then you can say a positive answer, or I'm leaning towards a negative answer. Okay, so that's a way of saying yes or no. Then, well, then children should or shouldn't should be made to read books. Or shouldn't, depending on what you want to say. Or the only way to make children take up the habit of regular reading is to make them read books on a regular basis. And on top of that, reading books is a lifelong skill to gain or to accumulate information. Right? Or without good reading skills, students won't succeed in any other subject area. Or unless, you could use a conditional sentence, unless it becomes a mandatory or obligatory subject, kids will never do it voluntarily. Okay. Good. So, well, if there are any questions, please type them in the chat box. I will wait for a while. If you have some other ideas or some other expressions that can be used here also, please type them. That will be interesting for everyone. Or if you watch the recording, if you don't watch this live, you can also write this in the commentaries section. And yes, other people will be able to see that, myself included. If you have some questions about IELTS, you can also write them in the commentary section, and I will answer them. Well, I'll begin my next live stream by answering these questions. Okay, so I see there are no more questions. So then I guess let's call it a day. So that'll be it for today. And see you in the next live stream. Thank you all for your attention. Thank you all for watching.